How's it going, gamers? Welcome to the dojo. Today, we're talking all about Nintendo's June Direct. So, Nintendo Direct, the showcase that kind of highlights a lot of the upcoming games and new IP, and this one in particular coming out around that kind of summertime as we again come up on the second half and close of the year, a really important one given all the hype around the potential next Switch successor, Switch 2, or whatever they're going to call it. So much so that Nintendo made sure to preface before this event that the Switch 2 hardware will not be talked about. Primarily, the focus was on the games and how they're going to kind of, I think, what I would call like the swan song for the Nintendo Switch, you know, the console that's been out for so long at this point. Now, this is the first time I'm covering kind of these like shows, these kind of game releases and radars and what have you, talk a little bit about the gaming news. I did record like yesterday morning when these directs come out, at least 7 a.m. on the PST side, and I just didn't have no energy, to be honest. Metal Slug? Ooh, NSO, what do we got? Got like 3-4 hours of sleep, so was running on empty there before leaving to work. So figured I'd just do a recap of what was covered at the Nintendo Direct. And this time around, just off the top, it was a pretty successful and overall I would vote as one of the top Nintendo Directs we've gotten this far in the year. A lot of heavy IPs, a lot of the typical kind of filler content in between, and as well as the kind of remake, remaster, rebundle of video games that is kind of pretty popular in the scene right now. So let's talk about those releases. So to kick things off, we're going to start with the Mario and Luigi Brothership. Not sure I'm a big fan of the name, to be honest, but this was the kickoff event for the Nintendo Direct, and this was around the new Mario and Luigi kind of title that's been announced. It's going to be coming out in November 7th, and this is a spin on, you know, the Mario and Luigi franchise. Admittedly, this is not a title or series that I played too much of myself growing up. I know it was like very popular on like the handhelds and whatnot. But yeah, this is the latest edition. And looking more at it, initially the graphics, it kind of has like a Paper Mario-esque feel to it. But when you see the actual gameplay, when it gets more into it, like it's gameplay that it has this RPG style to it. But in terms of like the movement and the kind of collaboration and moves that you again are using both Mario and Luigi does look pretty interesting. And I think in general, when it comes to a Mario and Luigi title, it's a very popular IP. You can't go wrong. This is probably going to do well. Is this something that I'm personally super excited about? Not necessarily, but looks promising. Something I might check out. But yeah, Mario and Luigi Brothership. Again, just interesting name. And then quickly to follow up, the Nintendo World Championship NES edition. This was already announced, I believe, at the previous Direct or the previous shows. This is just to kind of double down on their upcoming NES classics that they're tying into the kind of World Championships. This used to be like a physical event that they would hold, and in this case, it's kind of focused on speedrunning. All sorts of, Metroid, a bunch of different games that you can kind of go through here to go ahead and try to see how fast you can complete those levels or whatever the challenge may be at hand. So again, it's focusing on kind of the speedrun era that we're used to nowadays and is very popular online, and applying that to a lot of classic NES games. Again, this was already announced prior, so nothing crazy here. I did actually pre-order this, so I'll have that kind of bundle coming in. It's like the collector's edition or whatever they're calling it. But that is coming out July 18th, so next month around this time. And then the first kind of new game that we got or announcement was that, I guess outside of Mario and Luigi, was the Fairy Tail 2. This is like based on the anime Fairy Tail, and it's a real-time or RTS strategy game. Again, not something I'm too familiar with, not an anime I've watched, nor a series I'm familiar with, but again, I'm sure this will appeal to somebody out there, and it has that kind of RTS vibes to it, which is very popular on the Switch console. So there's Fairy Tail 2. I don't know if there was an actual like Fairy Tail 1 game that came out. Another popular one that came out and kind of getting in that anime world or style is Fantasia Neo Dimension. This is one I've heard about in the past, notably because this is from the creator of Final Fantasy. So obviously there's a lot of hype around it coming from Sakaguchi-san. And you have, again, a game that is going to be a role-playing base game, turn-based, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and you can kind of see some of the footage here. Interesting art style. Again, don't know too much about it other than, again, a lot of the initial hype because of its creator behind the project, but again, something that I may look into. Again, there's just so many games right now on the backlog, and there's obviously always so many coming out. Interesting one, and just because I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan, something that I may potentially check out at some point. Next up, Nintendo Switch Sports. This, again, is just an update to the popular sports title that's come out for the Nintendo Switch, kind of equivalent to that of like what was on the Nintendo Wii. But now you're getting basketball. This comes at a time where the NBA Finals just ended, and unfortunately the Boston Celtics took it all. But interesting. Obviously, big fan of basketball. And with that, interesting to see. You get a little bit of demo of the controls here. So like the shooting aspect of it. I will say Nintendo Switch Sports is one of those like fun party games. It's like not perfectly recapturing that classic Nintendo Wii Sports. But what I'm curious is here, like how the movement's going to work. If it's analog based, I'm assuming it's going to be analog based, and as you move, the ball auto dribbles is my assumption. But it's coming to a Nintendo Switch this summer, so it's just an update for the existing game. Next up, this is a game that I'm actually pretty interested in, and I will say, like, out of the games that I saw, this is the one that I wanted to at least like go out and get once it's released. And this is not coming, unfortunately, until 2025. But this is Mia, or Memories in Orbit. Very much so a Metroidvania from the looks of it, very like akin to like something like Hollow Knight, which a lot of people are waiting for that Silksong drop. But it has this kind of unique watercolor art style. And if I can jump into the gameplay here, it gives me like Gris meets Hollow Knight vibes. And the combat looks like very like fluid in motion. Again, a really unique art style meets a gameplay that I'm a big fan of. So interested to see when this comes out. Mio, Memories in Orbit. Had not heard too much about this, but definitely pleasantly surprised, and something that I'll definitely be checking out on release. And then you kind of get into what I would call like, the filler titles and a lot of different releases here. So there's some of these games I'm just going to go through. Hey, if they're your cup of tea, all the more power to you. Obviously, the big thing with Nintendo, and especially the Switch in general, very akin to the Wii, it is that kind of like everyman console, right? It's a console that can be for like family and your kids and so on. So you're going to get a lot of those like variety titles here, which includes things like Disney's Illusion Island, which my understanding is this is like a Metroidvania for Disney characters. So if you're like really into the Disney IP and you want to try something out, you can play as like Mickey and Minnie Mouse and all those characters here, in this kind of unique platforming Metroidvania-esque Disney game. But I believe Illusion's been out, so I think this is just like an update, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, new mystery update coming for Illusion Island. Speaking of Island, South Park fans rejoice. Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
I don't play World of Warcraft.
Butters, you said you're on your computer all the time.
Yeah, but I'm playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Is official. It is available. I believe this has been out for other platforms, but it's now available for the Switch. This is very much like Animal Crossing meets Hello Kitty in that whole universe. So everyone out there outside of Butters from South Park can rejoice in Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Pushing forward, Looney Tunes, The Wacky World of Sports. This is an interesting one just because I feel like this is like there was potential here with the whole like Space Jam tie-in and that kind of popularity. You don't see Looney Tunes, or what is it, Warner Brothers like IP too much in video games, at least not often. And it's interesting to see them release a game every now and again. This is very much like Switch Sports or like the classic Switch games, Mario Strikers, but with Looney Tunes IP. I don't know the popularity there and the hype, if enough people are going to go and get that, but it's a thing. Among Us is a thing. It got updates, it got new roles for the Nintendo Switch. Everybody at this point kind of knows everything about Among Us, so not much to speak on there. Newer titles that were very interesting to see. This game, it is called, I think, Farmagia. Farmagia. This is like a farming simulator meets like I don't even know. It's such an interesting game style. You have like this farming sim aspect of it, but like you farm essentially animals, and those animals you use to fight, and almost Pikmin-esque gameplay here, where like you use your little farm animals to go and handle fighting the world and everything around you. So not my cup of tea, but definitely one of those like weirder, out of the box games that may do well. Not gonna knock it. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. So we had, was it Tropical Freeze or whatever it was that came out for the Switch HD? And this is kind of where you start to see the HD remasters and remakes. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country, a classic for the Nintendo Switch in an HD remake. So if you were a fan of the classic Donkey Kong Returns or Country Returns, you now have it for the Nintendo Switch. Speaking of remakes, another big one that got announced was Dragon Quest. I believe it's 1, 2, and 3 technically are all going to be announced for the Nintendo Switch if I'm not mistaken. But I believe it's like 3 is coming out first and then 1 and 2 later or next year. This is a very popular franchise in Japan, where I'm from and I grew up. But it's getting an HD 2D remake. It's a mouthful. But it is an art style, I'll be honest, I'm very drawn to. It's like a unique kind of style. And I think it's, what's the name is escaping me right now, but an RPG I recently jumped into, very known for that kind of style and gameplay as well. I personally like it. I never played much of the Dragon Quest series, so like in this case, while I like the art style, not something that speaks to me personally, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fans who are interested in the HD 2D remake. Other games that we heard about and saw, Funko Fusion, for you Funko Pop fans out there, I guess you now have a video game that is officially now available on the Switch. So there's that. The Luigi's Mansion 2 HD that we already knew was coming out for the Nintendo Switch is now officially, or not officially, but is going to be coming out pretty soon, June 27th. So a couple weeks from now, we are getting that. I believe that was originally released on the Nintendo DS, if I'm not mistaken. So Luigi's Mansion 2 HD coming out on the Nintendo Switch soon enough, and hopefully we'll get the original Luigi's Mansion remake at some point for the Nintendo Switch or via a GameCube emulator. And then from here, there's a bunch of other games that I'm just going to kind of go through. The new Denpa Man Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, Darkest Dungeon 2, which is a very popular game, is now making its way to the Switch. The sequel's going to be available. And then you have the NSO updates, or the Nintendo Switch Online updates. You have 4 games that are going to be added to this kind of emulation platform, and those 4 games being Zelda's 4 Swords, or A Link to the Past. I believe both were on the Game Boy Advance, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have Metroid Zero Mission. Recently, I've been really into Metroid games, so this is something that I'll definitely have to check out. And then you have Turok Dinosaur Hunter and finally Perfect Dark for the N64. These 2 N64 ones are interesting because this comes at a time where obviously Perfect Dark is getting a HD remaster remake, I believe, for the Xbox side. But these are also the first 2, if I'm not mistaken, rated M games that are coming out for the Nintendo Switch Online. And as such, Nintendo needs to ensure that you are of age or old enough to play said game. So I believe they're going to do like a specific app or portal that you have to go through to verify to play said games and have access to them via Nintendo Switch Online. So just because you have your Nintendo Switch account, you have to be of age, because obviously kids can have a Nintendo Switch Online account. I'm sure it'll tie into parental controls and all that. But yeah, 4 games, really solid titles coming to the Nintendo Switch Online. And it's worth adding, Perfect Dark will be getting multiplayer online support. So that's always nice. Though, who knows how popular that'll be. Phantom Brave: The Lost Hero, a game I don't know too much about, but will be coming out in 2025, so there's that. You have Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics coming to the Nintendo Switch. This was actually a pretty hyped one. A lot of fighting fans who are a fan of the MVC series are getting a multitude of MVC games for the Nintendo Switch. I believe there's like a lot of like IP issues around this, and it's always harder to get licensing around Marvel vs. Capcom games. So you're getting this kind of bundle pack now available for the Nintendo Switch with kind of like modern quality of life adjustments. So interesting. I think a lot of people are going to be a fan of this, especially for fighting genres. It's like the one game I saw talked a lot about outside of the main Nintendo IP. And that leads me to the heavies, the big announcements regarding the Nintendo Switch in this Nintendo Direct. First and foremost being Super Mario Party Jamboree. This is the new Super Mario Party game that was announced, and this is the kind of the third title, and what I imagine will be the final title when it comes to Mario Party games for at least the first generation Switch. Maybe they'll obviously announce them in the second predecessor. But all new boards, all new mini games, 100 plus mini games, maps, all that good stuff. They have some throwback maps as well to the original Mario Parties. But the big notable thing with Mario Party Jamboree is that it's focusing heavily more on the multiplayer aspect in the sense of its 20-person mode battle royale. And this is like the big thing that a lot of people were touting, because like this is finally just offering up a new way to really play with more people. So you'll have the ability to play with people online, as you can see here, and again, really open up the gates to playing with more than just 4 people. And I believe it's going to be kind of like a battle royale style. I don't know. Maybe it is just a board game sort of style. But as you can see here, it's kind of this like elimination style mini games or multiplayer games. And this is something that I think has been long overdue when it comes to the Mario Party series, especially in this modern day and age we live in, where multiplayer games online are so popular. And the Switch is like the king of party and like co-op games, in my opinion. So I think Mario Party Jamboree finally getting that type of mode and support, awesome. Again, it is online based, but it's a step forward nonetheless. Next up, Zelda got a pretty big announcement in a new form of a game, but the big twist this time around was you're not necessarily playing as Zelda and you're Link trying to save her. Rather, you're playing as Zelda trying to save Link. And this was a big announcement because this is on the kind of rumors and cusp of like, are we going to get a new Zelda game? Are we going to get an HD remake of things like Wind Waker or what have you for the Switch? And instead, we got a completely new game with this Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which it's using the Link's Awakening engine, and it's flipping the script where you're no longer playing as Link here, but you are playing as Zelda, and that's the whole premise behind this story. So you have that Link's Awakening engine, which is very known for its kind of cartoony style, tilt-shift graphics, and then you have the further kind of spin-off where you're playing as the main character, Zelda in this case, in a Legend of Zelda game. Who would have thought? They might have as well called it The Legend of Link to make it even more confusing. But I think this spin's really interesting. It's further, exemplified by this kind of duplicator item that you have. You have this ability to create echoes and duplicate items. And then from there, you can use those however you please. And I think this brings that element of like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to a Link's Awakening style game where it's going to allow for like really interesting kind of creativity, and again, very similar to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. There, you get those kind of craft the solution elements yourself, as you can see here, in this different style of Zelda game. And I think just from the reception, like this is pretty well received. I think that this Echoes of the Wisdom is going to be, one of those new titles that people didn't see coming, but will be interested in. It's coming out September 26th, so I will personally be picking this one up. Super excited. I just recently started playing Link's Awakening, so hopefully I can get decently through it before September, and then we'll jump into Echoes of Wisdom. And at the same time, on that release date of Echoes of Wisdom, they're releasing a Nintendo Switch Lite Hyrule Edition. This is going to be coming out September 26th as well, and I gotta say, I got 3-4 Switches at this point. I have no Switch Lites, and for whatever reason, I have the inclination and desire now all of a sudden to buy a Switch Lite after seeing this Hyrule Edition. I am a sucker for Zelda themed consoles, 3DS, 2DS, all that stuff. And I think this is one I definitely have to add to my collection. And yeah, now I guess I'll have a Switch Lite come September. But yeah, it's this really kind of cool golden custom Hyrule theme, which is something they've done across different consoles, like I said, like the 3DS and so on and so forth. So no surprise here, though it is interesting that it's coming out at a time, obviously, to coincide with the Echoes of Wisdom release. I imagine this is because like this is that twilight period of sunsetting the initial Switch. So again, this is just going to help boost console sales. It's also at a time where Nintendo is, I believe, 1.5 million units away of surpassing the PlayStation 2 as the most sold or most successfully sold console. It shows you how long the Switch has been around, and by them doing releases like this at the tail end of it, you can guarantee it's going to help pump those sales up. All right, to wrap up here, you also have games like Just Dance 2025, Lego Horizon Adventures, Stray got a Switch port finally, Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game that's like basically like a Lord of the Rings farming sim, is my understanding, or cooking simulator, maybe. You got the Ace Attorney series bundled in this Investigations collection that's going to be coming out in September. And you got a bunch of new games, 100 Line, Last Defense Academy. You got the Romancing Saga 2. I believe this is a remake, if I'm not mistaken, for the Nintendo Switch from Square Enix. But by far, the big hyped up announcement that ended the Nintendo Direct show was the announcement of, finally, we are getting a Metroid Prime 4, and specifically Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. This has been a very long time coming. Gamers know all about this. This is something that's been on the horizon for so long and rumored and talked about. And I gotta say, at least looking through the trailer and the gameplay they set here, the graphics look pretty solid, and it makes me wonder if like this is going to be a title that is going to essentially be prepped for the next gen of hardware, meaning like the Switch 2 or whatever they call it. I wouldn't be surprised if they already have this prepped and ready for that release. And then obviously they'll have a Switch version that will just be, less optimized graphically, so on and so forth. But yeah, this is super popular. Metroid really defined the Metroidvania genre, and it's a title that's been so popular in the world of gaming. I personally have just recently started Metroid Dread, and I'm like maybe halfway through that. Really enjoying that. And a lot of the classic Metroid games I admittedly have not played through, so fake gamer here. I still need to go through Prime Remastered and all of that, but I got a lot of catching up to do before Prime 4 drops. I believe they said it's not going to be released till 2025. So it's been in development since 2019, to kind of give you an idea, by Retro Studios. So finally an official announcement after it was first announced back in 2017, which is just crazy to think about. So yeah, here we are 7 years later. That said, that is everything that was mentioned in Nintendo's Direct yesterday morning. A lot of games, a lot of filler stuff, a lot of stuff that's maybe more so for like the niche audiences, the RPG fans, the JRPG fans, the anime fans, the younger audience, and so on and so forth, down to the remakes and remasters that are going to really tug on those nostalgia heartstrings, and things like the bundled from the MVC collection or the Ace Attorney collection, where we're going to see a lot of those, fans of those games on the previous handhelds be able to get all those now on their Switch. Down to, of course, the big IP from Nintendo. You had the Mario and Luigi Brothership announcement. You had the Donkey Kong Returns announcement, the HD remake. You had the Mario Party Jamboree announcement. And then you had the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, as well as the Metroid Prime 4 Beyond announcement. Heavy IP from Nintendo in a way that only Nintendo can really do it. I think that's obviously Nintendo's biggest selling point, is they have these series, they have these properties and characters and games like Metroid, like Zelda, like Mario, that they can really expand upon and kind of trickle these releases out all at once. So it's going to be a nice couple of upcoming months in terms of releases, starting now through September, going to the December holiday. So what are you most interested about? What is something that you're looking towards picking up based on this Nintendo Direct announcement? Leave it down in the comments below, gamers. As always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more content to come. And thanks for watching.